Many of you at the GFA are familiar with the work of Aaron Shearer and the Aaron Shearer Foundation. It was established to perpetuate and enhance Aaron Shearer's legacy of classical guitar pedagogy. What you may not know is all that is encompassed with the Shearer Foundation, from publications and musical products to recordings, symposiums, teacher certification, private lessons, even webcasting, scholarships, and grants. And that the foundation is organized and maintained by former students, colleagues, and family members. And we are joined by two of them right now. I'd like to welcome to the GFA, Alan Hirsch and Thomas Kikta.
Thank you for having us.
Alan, would you tell us, it's so fabulous. I'm fans of both of you guys. I should take a moment and say that I learned out of what I think of as the first series of Shearer books. And then when I studied in graduate school, I deeply studied pedagogy out of this second generation of Shearer books, or at least that's how I think of them. And then now as a teacher, I use in all my classes the third generation. So I'm an absolute fanboy, and I was really excited to see you guys jump into the virtual guitar orchestra scene. Alan, many of us know you outside of the Shearer Foundation as a conductor and composer. So would you tell us maybe a bit about how the idea started to do a virtual guitar orchestra? What was your motivation or even the inspiration behind it?
Well, I tell you, this whole thing started, I guess it was maybe the third week of March. My school had just closed down, and I, like many other music educators, was getting ready to do a big spring music festival. And so, with a shutdown, my mind first went to the idea, how are we going to survive? How does the music department continue in a time like this? And my mind immediately went to virtual ensemble. One of the great examples that I've always been blown away by are the virtual choirs of Eric Whitaker. And, when those things were produced years ago, those were like, wow, those are, we can actually do this with technology. And now we get to this point where we just need to do it as a matter of survival. So I started embarking, this was maybe third week of March, on all these plans to do, virtual percussion ensemble, virtual choral pieces, virtual guitar ensembles, obviously. I had string ensemble pieces, and put it all together. And in the middle of that, I'm thinking, because we're also, the Shearer Foundation annually, we work toward doing a Zion festival in July. So we both Tom and I realized that we saw the writing on the wall. Zion's not going to happen. What can we do to keep our community going, to provide some kind of interest and make and maintain connection with the Shearer Foundation? So I thought, well, if I'm doing virtual guitar ensembles in school, why can't we do this for the foundation? And so that's, I pitched to Tom, and, I think we both saw the value in going forward with this project at that point. Tom, you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. We were told Thursday night that by Monday we would be virtual at Duquesne University. And so one day we took all of our curriculum and moved it back to everyone's personal homes. Being the chair of commercial music and media, fortunately, all of my staff have their own recording studios. And so, we were able to, have the equipment back at our own studios to continue our curriculum and continue our teaching. But fortunately, all of our students also had interfaces and microphones. And so the technology department was very well poised, so much so that parallel to that, I started a virtual orchestra of the Duquesne Symphony Orchestra, and it was all around the world. 50, 60 people played in, and we did a virtual orchestra from that. And so it was only a logical progression that Alan and I were both thinking on the same wavelength. And when Alan came, I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "We just finished the virtual orchestra. Let's do it." And it was just so the beautiful arrangement by Alan, and just so much fun to see people respond and send in their recordings and everything like that. It was just a lot of fun.
I was going to say, my students at my school, since I teach in the high school, they did not have home recording studios or equipment. And so the very first step for me was for these guys. I said, listen, you gotta order USB mics for your Macs. I mean, those are not great mics, but they're better than the mics that are built into the laptops. So my guys were, I have a contact at Sweetwater, and I contacted him. I said, we're going to need maybe at least 20, 30 mics right now. He said, yeah, we just got a shipment of these in, and I can make sure that your guys get them. So, going through all this with my students, getting them to get the USB mics, then I started to, outline how they would do this, how they would record their audio and their video, and then how they would upload their files to Google Drive. And, I had the whole thing laid out, and this is like, okay, this model exists. Why don't we just do it for the foundation? And then, I thought, I'm sorry?
No, I was just going to say there was another thing at play also. It was disheartening and saddening to see the depression, the sadness in the students. That social gathering was over so quickly. And as Alan and I were talking about, I said, that's happening here. That's happening around the world. Yep. Let's create something that gives everyone something to do, to have some fun and to feel like a community again. And it just really started to move from there.
Yeah, I got to say, when I started doing this with my high school students, my students were so bummed. They were just, depressed about, especially seniors who were graduating, right? This is the end of their year. And the idea of doing a virtual, we called it our Fine Arts Day. It's our spring concert. The idea of doing a virtual Fine Arts Day, I created a website for that. And we put all these, virtual videos and artwork, all sorts of stuff on this website. But the idea of having this project throughout the rest of the second semester was almost like a life preserver for them. It kept them afloat, and it gave them something to look forward to. And oh my gosh, I mean, when they finally saw these videos at the end, I mean, there was just an emotional, I got all these emails about people that were just so emotionally touched by it, and that the way that they felt they were being brought together. It's a beautiful feeling, and it's the same feedback that we had, when we had people submitting their recordings for the virtual guitar orchestra, Simple Gifts. People were saying, this is such a great thing you guys are doing. We're so excited to see the product. Thank you. So much gratitude. And, it really is. Music by nature is an art form that builds community. So, when we're in this situation, to have any way of recreating that, be it, one-on-one or with a group, it's so important for us.
Yeah, it's very inspiring to listen to you guys talk about the motivation and the inspiration behind it. And it's also really, it's good to know where all the USB mics went. Now that we figured out who purchased up all of the USB mics out there, maybe it would be a good time to segue into something that struck me when these projects were first presented, and that is the final product has a way of looking pretty easy. It looks so smooth, and it makes everyone want to jump in and do one of these projects.
Right.
Would you mind just speaking a little bit about the technical challenges that one needs to overcome with this?
First of all, our first offering in the Simple Gifts that's kind of an important piece for me, because I think it's one of the first pieces that I arranged for a guitar ensemble back in 97 or something like that. And that's when I really got the excitement about guitar ensemble, was this piece. But the other great thing about Simple Gifts, it's not I wouldn't call it a musically exciting, sophisticated. It's a beautiful piece, but it has a kind of the simplicity, the squareness of the rhythm, the half notes and the quarter notes, make it a really good entry-level piece for any kind of an ensemble beginning, especially. But I thought, if we're going to do something virtual, I think to make our life easier in terms of audio editing, we need to do something which is so simple and entry level. I originally had a retard at the end of the piece, and we found out that retard did not transfer on the audio reference tracks, which is what everybody uses. They're listening to a sound as they play. They're listening to the sound of their part. And apparently the retard marking, this is a finale blooper, I use finale, the expressive marking only was applied to guitar one part. So the other parts didn't have them. one of the participants, I can't remember who, sent me an email saying, "Hey, you got an inconsistency here. You only got the guitar one that has the retard." So I contacted Tom and said, "What are we going to do? We need to send all this stuff out with the retard." And then Tom, you might want to share how you felt about that.
Well, I mean, since it was only in one part, I knew that in post we could edit that and put the notes right on the right mark. I think it was only if I remember correctly, it was only in the first part that it was written. Everybody else was sticking to the click. So really, one way to deal with it was simply to edit it up in post and put it back in the proper, timing. Or the other way of doing it is build your retard in the other part. So you could go either way. I mean, that's really the challenge with something like this. It might only take tops 15, 20 minutes for the individual to play the part, maybe an hour tops to do a couple of takes and play the part, pick the best one, send it in. But then the post-production on average, for 3 or 4 minutes takes anywhere from 15 to 20 hours of work in post-production audio and in post-production video to assemble it all together. It's time consuming.
15 hours of audio editing. I got to say, Tom, though, you also cautioned me. You said you were involved in the Kanye West project?
Stephen Hackman. Yeah, I was participating. That was a virtual that was going on at the same time that we were working. I was working with Stephen Hackman on a social distancing project. Yeah.
And you were saying that it's very difficult for a performer to feel that retard. That maybe it's best to just not even use it to make life simpler, right? So we just got rid of it.
Yeah, altogether just removed it and went from there. But in the future, depending upon the background of the performer, they can practice it and kind of get it close and everything. But it can be a definite challenge for some of the nuances that you want to put into the music from there.
Well, the key definitely is to get a good solid reference track, audio reference track. And I did sort of explore that with my other my other virtual ensembles for my school. We had some with some tempo changes, a couple of retards. It was tricky for them, but they did get it. It definitely requires a matter of just practicing the part before you record it. And if you don't do that, you're in trouble. But audio reference is your lifeline.
So you guys have touched upon it already, the impact, the feedback you got from the players involved, and clearly it's had enough to impact that from the first VGO project you did, you went right into a second project.
That was we had discussed that this is something we feel like we need to engage our viewers, the people who are involved in the Shearer Foundation. We feel like this is an important thing for them, and that this is a great way to maintain our survival in this very strange isolation. Everybody's in isolation. We come together in community virtual ensemble. What a beautiful thing. So Project 2 is now out there. Project 3 maybe by July. We'll see. I don't know. Hopefully we'll be back to normal and sometime soon. But until that happens, I think it's great to have this project available.
How about any words of encouragement or advice?
Well, it was interesting. I was just going to say it was interesting that a lot of people made the comment that the virtual video, the virtual guitar orchestra video, became almost a yearbook for them. It was almost like the close of it time-stamped this event in their mind, somewhat like a yearbook. And I thought that was an interesting comment, that it really created when they reflect back, it was the virtual orchestra that made them, pull through it and think fondly of that time, sort of like a yearbook does, So I thought that was an interesting comment from some of the people. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is exactly the same from my students in our school for our virtual fine arts day. But to your question, Chuck, I'd say any music director, guitar ensemble director should pursue it. It is doable. It does take a lot of prep in the initial stage to get your parts set up so that there's a full measure of tick before they hear their audio reference, and to make sure that everything is organized. And I think
if it doesn't bleed into the recording,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah, have an earbud in or a headpiece, headphones.
Yeah, I had one gal who submitted a recording. She didn't use headphones, but she just used her smartphone, and you could hear both the audio reference and the tick in the recording, which of course was not acceptable.
And then we had people that just played it freestyle. They just played it. No tick, no reference.
Headphones.
It's like,
headphones. Yeah.
Okay.
So you guys clearly have an enthusiasm and an energy for this. And from what you're describing, you have way more hours invested in this process than an individual player would have. So since you're so invested in this, what was your favorite part of the project? Something that surprised you, or something that you just weren't expecting, something that stood out. Maybe Alan, you first.
Yeah, I got to say what really was the most favorite part for me was just getting these videos, looking at these videos as they were coming in, seeing these people, getting responses from people around the world. That just blew me away. I thought, well, if anything, we're just going to get participation from just this country, maybe people we've already connected with. But we reached out. We had somebody from Spain and somebody from Bulgaria, some folks from Canada. That was really touching to see. And the other thing is, to see who these people were. I'd see a name of a submission. Oh, okay. And then I look at this video, and it's a 7-year-old kid. And I'm thinking, whoa, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that this sense of age and diversity, and just, it's a beautiful thing to see. I think that's the end goal, and we're seeing that on these submissions.
Tom, how about yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's true. The breadth of coverage of people sending things in, and the demographics of age and geography was really incredible. And then as I'm sitting there listening to it, it blows me away that in the studio we spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on microphones, and it was amazing how good a little smartphone mic sounds. You put it all together, and you're like, doggone, that sounds pretty doggone good. At least there was enough there to sweeten it, to make it sound quite decent. And so that was kind of a revelation right there. It's like, wow, okay,
Well, it helps to have Ableton, and this, by the way, and there's some great,
a lot of capabilities now.
Yeah,
it's
there's
true.
some great audio software out there that's available for 90-day free trials, Ableton and Pro Tools. And I was telling my kids that if they wanted something beyond like GarageBand, that they could download that. But yeah, it helps to have good software for sure.
Yeah, I would have to say
I'll tell you what, the software.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say the software companies were very, very generous. That's one thing that I was really impressed with. Finale, Pro Tools, all the software companies were so generous in being able to offer 90-day, 60-day, so that nobody was left in the lurch. And that enabled a lot of classes to go on. So that was kudos to those folks for really being cooperative that way.
One of my first reactions when I watched the final product of Simple Gifts was as you both mentioned, just the diversity of the players. I found that to be one of the most striking and one of the most beautiful things to watch players of all types and all ages, playing together. Tom, Alan, thank you so much for spending some time with us and giving us some insight to the Shearer Foundation VGO. And I think the best thing for us to do now is to listen to Simple Gifts, arranged by Alan Hirsch. Here is the Shearer Foundation Virtual Guitar Orchestra.